I'm Regina, and in today's video we are going to talk about okra. How to plant it, we're going to talk about how to take care of it, and of course the most fun part where we get to see the actual fruits of our labor, how to harvest it. Now, this okra was planted on April 4th, 2022, so we are almost exactly 2 months later here on June 2nd, and it's time to harvest some fully formed, completely done, ripe okra. Now, okra is one of my favorite things to grow because it grows so well in this really hot climate, North Texas, zone 8A, because it is a nutritional powerhouse. Seriously, look it up. Okra is a superfood. It's got lots of calcium, it's got lots of fiber, it's got protein, iron, vitamin C. Y'all, it has everything. Y'all need to be growing okra and eating it. Even if you don't like it, find a way to cook it so you like it because it's so good for you. But those are my reasons, and I just love the taste of it. I eat okra growing up. We would have it at like family gatherings. We would always have a little bit of okra, and we all kind of only got to get a little bit because it cooked down so much. So it's so nice to grow it and have enough to where I can have as much okra as I want every summer, and I'm able to save enough to have it throughout the year. So okra is also really important to me just because it was actually most likely it was first introduced to the United States and the Caribbean by West Africans who were kidnapped and of course brought over as slaves. That's how okra got here. So it holds a special place or special significance for me because I'm a descendant of those slaves. So it's a really cool thing to do that is actually kind of looking back at my heritage or at the heritage of my ancestors. Now, I planted this okra on April 4th by direct sowing the seeds directly into this raised bed. In my opinion, direct sowing okra, if you live in a climate that has a long growing season like I do, then that's kind of the best way to go. I'm in North Texas, zone 8A, and that's the best way to go, at least from my experience. The reason why I say that, of course, is because direct sowing, of course, is the easiest. Now, of course, we do starter plants for things like tomatoes, peppers, etc., because it gives us a jump on that growing season, right? Last season, I actually started my okra in seed starting trays about 3 weeks before I planted it out. And that was simply because the bed I wanted to grow it in had not been built yet. I was waiting to do that. So I went ahead and started the okra, and it grew for about 3 weeks before I was ready to plant it. And at the time I planted those seedlings out, I also direct sowed some seeds for some of the plants because I didn't have enough, or I don't remember why, but I direct sowed some seeds as well. Well, after about 3 weeks in the ground, the ones I direct sowed had caught up to the seedlings that I started 3 weeks older. So those seedlings were about 6 weeks old, whereas the plants I direct sowed were only 3 weeks old, and they had caught up, and everything ended up fruiting at about the same time. So starting those seeds early provided no advantage to me. It was just a little bit more work. So from that experience, and of course I've direct sown in the past, now I know okra is something I'm going to direct sow. Now, of course, if you live in a climate with a shorter growing season, you might be starting your okra plants, 4, 5, 6 weeks earlier, and it might make sense for you just because you don't have as long to grow them. But if you live in North Texas where it's crazy hot in the summers, then I recommend direct sowing them. It's easy, and you're going to get really great results. Now, the direct sowing process is really easy. I grow my okra high density spaced, so I give it 1 square foot per plant. So when I first plant the okra, I usually put about 2 seeds per hole. See me planting it here, 2 seeds in each hole, and I estimate the spacing, but I know about how many I need in this 4x8 bed, even though about 1 foot of the side of it is being used for that arch trellis for my watermelon. So planted my okra seeds out, and then once they germinated and the plants were about 8-10 inches high, I did go ahead and thin them because most of them both seeds ended up germinating. So I did thin it out because another thing I have noticed is sometimes I have let the plants just grow and to see what would happen if I had 2 plants side by side, and those plants ended up just being less sturdy, they were thinner, they didn't produce as much. So I know I'm already planting them really densely, so I thin them so that I just have 1 plant per square foot, and the okra will grow really, really well. Now, caring for okra. Okra is a heavy nitrogen feeding plant. It is a hungry plant, so you want to fertilize your okra regularly. Me, as you'll learn in my garden, if you watch my garden tours or my videos, I mostly use slow release a slow release granular organic fertilizer because it's less work, in my opinion. The water soluble ones, I'm sure they are great and they do a great job for the plants, but you end up having to to fertilize much more frequently, like every week, sometimes more frequently than that. And so I prefer the slow release ones so that I can fertilize, you know, once a month, once every 6 weeks, depending on the plant and what it needs. So these okra plants, I took care of this raised bed, like I did all of them, by topping it with compost and using some alfalfa pellets, all of that to prepare it for planting. And then at planting time, I did not use any fertilizer. I don't really use fertilizer when I'm just planting a seed. So I planted the seeds and covered them, as you saw, as you just saw me do. And then once the plants germinated and had true leaves, 2 true leaves, then I went ahead and fertilized them. And I just sprinkled the fertilizer on the soil. A decent amount, but I just covered the soil, sprinkled the fertilizer, and I used my garden tone fertilizer for the okra. And that's what I've been using for pretty much everything. It's a balanced one it has nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. You could fertilize these with a more high nitrogen one because okra loves nitrogen, but what I've learned is that there's probably enough nitrogen in the soil, and the balanced fertilizer gives them everything they need. So they're doing excellent, as you can see. And since that was probably about 6 weeks ago that I fertilized them, maybe in a couple weeks I'll probably give them another dose because okra is a heavy feeder, but I do use plenty of fertilizer when I fertilize it. When I fertilize them the next time, since they are kind of full plants now, I'll use about half a cup of my garden tone per plant. But it's not quite time to do that yet. Like I said, I'm going to give them another 2 weeks or so. I kind of play it by the way the plants look, and these just look like they're doing great. So I don't want to mess anything up. I'm going to give them a little bit of time. So now it's time to harvest okra. Now I've been gone. I was actually out of town. The kids and I, we went with my mom. We went on a trip to Florida, and we've been gone for 8 days. And when I left, I didn't even have any open flowers. I had some flower buds, but I didn't have any flowers that had opened yet. And now that I'm back, I have fully grown okra on a lot of my plants. And that's how fast it grows. Once this stuff starts producing, like now, you're usually cutting okra every day or every other day because you don't want it to get past, depending on the variety, I like to cut mine when it's 5 or 6 inches long so that it's not getting woody. Because you know, okra, if you let it stay on the plant too long, it will become woody and inedible. And so you definitely don't want that. So I'm gonna harvest this okra and let's see what we have. So harvesting okra is really easy. You always want to use a pair of scissors or pruners so that you don't hurt the plant because the stems are pretty thick and it's hard to just pull them off. But let's see what we have here. Okay, so my first row here is Go Big okra. And so I have these separated. I have different bowls because I actually want to keep track of which variety is producing what amount, etc. And I grew a bunch of varieties last year and years before, but I've never really tracked it that way. I always just track it all together. But this year I want to keep it separate until I've tracked it, until I've weighed it and counted and everything. So let's see, my Go Big okra. So here I have Go Big. Look at that guy. A little too long, I guess, but it feels okay. There's another one for this plant. All right, I just have 2 of these Go Big plants. One of my plants didn't make it. Okay. Now for the Okinawa pink. This Okinawa pink is a really fun variety. I've never grown it before. So this is my first year. And So here is a good look at one of the Okinawa pink. Look how pretty that is, y'all. It is such a pretty color. Beautiful. I also recommend using gloves when you're harvesting okra because the plant can be a little spiny, and also I found that it sometimes irritates my skin. So I wear gloves, and once the plants get really tall and I'm really having to reach in there, then I usually will wear long sleeves. Otherwise, my skin gets kind of itchy for the evening. It doesn't last long, but it's kind of annoying. So if you have sensitive skin or you just want to be on the safe side, I recommend doing that. So now the next plants I'm harvesting are the Jambalaya okra. That one, perfect size. Okay, now we have the Clemson spineless. This is a really popular variety. It's actually the first variety of okra I ever grew before I branched out and started growing more, but it is a really good one. And lastly, over here I have my Burgundy okra and bowling red. I don't have any Burgundy that's quite ready yet, but I do have some bowling red in here. Okay, so that harvest is over, and here's what we got. Oh, I just dropped one. And here's what we've got. It's like 6 total pieces of okra. I'll leave these out so you can see, not 6 total, sorry. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, it's like 13 total pieces of okra. Here we go. Here's a better image. From my plants, which is not bad, y'all. This is the first harvest of the season, and now that it has started, I'm gonna get buckets and buckets, pounds and pounds of this stuff. And I'm really excited about it. These Okinawa pink are really neat. They're smooth and round, rather than, you know, more of this one that's more of a hexagon, pentagonal, where it has stronger lines. This one is actually quite round, which is neat. All the varieties had some okra that was ripe today, except for the Burgundy. So I guess that one's taking just a teeny bit longer, but it definitely had some flowers on it. So I'm sure it'll be producing soon. All of these varieties I've grown before, except the Okinawa pink, which is probably why I'm so fascinated about it. A great okra harvest, all in all. So I am going to actually use some of this in a salad. Yes, you can eat okra raw, and it is really good. I like to cut it up pretty thin, into thin slices and chop it. Sometimes I chop it, sometimes I just do the thin slices and mix it into a salad. It has a nice crunch, and you know, of course you have that, I don't know what the technical term, but that sliminess that okra has. I don't mind that texture, and it's actually really good for your digestive system. But yeah, I'm gonna put some of this in a salad so I get all the nutrients with some other veggies from the garden. After coming back from that trip, we drove there and back. We just ate a ton of fast food, a whole lot of delicious garbage. So I'm trying to kind of detox a little bit, get some more healthy food in my system. And so a nice salad featuring this delicious okra is gonna do the trick. But of course, thank you for watching this video. If you have not done so already, go ahead and hit that like button if you found this content helpful, if you learned something, or you just kind of like the video. Click that like button, click that subscribe if you want more gardening content from me. I'm in North Texas, Zone 8A, but of course my content and information can be used anywhere. Of course, you just have to adapt it to your zone. And if you think this content could be helpful to another gardener you know, of course share it. Share it in your gardening groups. That would really help out the channel and help me out, which I would really appreciate. Now, until we meet again,